You're listening to Nurture Your Zest. I'm your host, Ashleigh King, and I will introduce you to a wealth of interesting, fascinating individuals from all walks of life who will share their stories, how they've overcome challenges, and you will find out their top tips for success. Through this podcast, you can gain tips to grow and change your life and the way you see the world, and help you to nurture your zest. So thank you so much, everyone, for coming to tonight's event. We are here to celebrate International Women's Day, which we know is tomorrow, the 8th of March. But because of all the incredible things happening in the city and all over the world, we knew that we wanted to get in on a different day just so that we wouldn't steal anyone else's thunder. We actually have two people that I'd like to invite to say something before we start our formal panel, just in support of their new ventures and activities. So I would like to very briefly invite Gabrielle, who is my sidekick. If you have ever met Gabi before, or some of you might know her name, we did TEDx together. She is an absolute trusted friend. I adore her. She put up with all of my creative chaos and helped to organize it. And she's the most beautiful baker and just beautiful soul. So she made the gorgeous cake. So Gabrielle, would you like to come and tell us about your new venture?
I'll let you stand up. I didn't plan on it. Hi everyone, as you've heard, I'm Gabriella or Gabi. I worked on TEDx for a bit. I'm also in my final year of genetics at Newcastle University. I do quite a lot of traveling, and I've always been a sweet tooth, and I kind of feel like baking has traveled with me. And now last year during COVID, I was in Belfast and I had to spend my time somehow, and I just loved baking and sharing with my neighbours, socially distant through the door. And it was all just so fun that I love that I can actually bring it back here in Newcastle when I came back for my final year and share some of my creations with you. I did mention the green dye this to color your tongue and teeth a little bit, but it's only food dye, so with a little bit of water or anything else it'll be fine. Otherwise, I hope you enjoy the cakes and the banana bread, and thank you so much. Thank you.
So we will make sure that we will give you links to Gabi later. We'll send out an email where how you can find her on Instagram and things like that. And then there's another person that I'd like to invite to say something. It's really special that she's going to say something. But before we do that, I just wanted to introduce tonight's topic. So tonight's topic is all about the power of fierce authenticity. And the reason I chose that topic is every year there's a different topic and theme for International Women's Day. And this year it's Break the Bias. And the 5 people that I've asked to speak tonight to me are all people that I look up to, who inspire me in their own way, and I feel are breaking biases every day. So I can't wait to share them with you. But I also want to share a very special voice with you, who I think is fiercely authentic. So if I can invite Eva Talbot-Jones, who is 10 years old and also the founder of Mooncake Bakery, and she will share what fierce authenticity means to her. I'm here.
I think fierce on the theme. Well, I think the theme. Well, the theme means to me letting your light shine. As you can see on the cupcakes, you have those little stars, and it's trying to tell you let your light shine and be you, and don't let anyone stop you from being who you want to be.
Before Eva goes, I just want to share that she's started her own bakery. Every week she's selling cakes, and she's putting that money, some of it to charity, some of it back into her business. But she's only 10 and she's learning how to be a businesswoman. And I'm really proud of her, and I'm proud to mentor and support her. So thank you so much for having the courage to speak. I think you're awesome.
Thank you.
Yeah. Okay. So thank you so much. So we will just chat a little bit to our panelists now and hear a little bit about them. When people talk about authenticity, I'd like you to think as an audience what that means to you. So what does authenticity mean? Some people just overuse the word. We hear it all the time. It can mean having the courage to be yourself, but actually not everyone lives that word. And for me and for Flamingo Heights, the whole point of the word authenticity is to have the courage to find your voice, to share stories, real stories of real people from all walks of life. So I would like to start with Kay on the end. Kay Grayson, awesome rapper, hip-hop star, goes into schools, works with the BBC, is a creative musical artist, winner of many grants and awards. Can you tell us a little bit about yourself, Kay?
My name is Kay Grayson. And thank you for all the lovely things you just said, Ashleigh. I'm going to try and follow those up right now. Yeah, so like I say, my name is Kay. I'm 23 years old, I think. And yeah, I started making music when I was about 6 years old because my father's a musician. And he played in lots of bands in the 70s and was just a bit of a rock star drummer. And I was like, I want to be like that. So yeah, from the age of 6, sort of followed my passion to be a musician, and always knew that that was what I wanted to do and who I wanted to be, and just chase that path. Sometimes it seemed very crazy, especially during sort of education and things like that. You get the pressures to want to sway one way or sway the other, but I always knew that music was something I wanted to do, and thanks to that I've achieved lots of amazing things. I often think that with these type of careers, you go in one direction and then you find yourself going in a complete other direction. So I started off doing music, and then as I was doing that, I was trying to find a way to make money doing music, which is very difficult. And a friend of mine was freelancing at the time and sort of teaching. And he sort of inspired me to go down that route and said, what about sort of sharing the gift of music? And that was what I started to do. I went into schools, and then that branched into writing, and it branched into theatre and lots of other different things that I ended up doing. So now I'm writing and acting and producing and doing music. And I mean, overall, I'm just very tired. But I'm having a good time, sort of being who I am, and yeah, being a creative. It's really fun. Think I covered all bases. I may have got off topic, but yeah.
Excellent, thank you. And we're going to come back with a question for you soon, and also the audience can ask questions as well. So CeCe is really awesome too. You all are, which is why you're here. And a recovering alcoholic, trauma survivor, has been through so much and does so much to help other people, and really, again, give people the courage to find their voice through writing, through coaching. Can you share a little bit about your background and your story, CeCe?
Yeah, so I'm really excited to be here. I'm CeCe Reagan. I'm all those things that Ashleigh said. Thank you so much. I'm also a published poet, and I help other survivors to heal through writing, because that's what's helped me through my life. I'm originally from North Carolina in the States, as you can probably tell by the drawl, especially when I say Carolina. But I've been here for about 4.5 years. Newcastle really is home to me, but I had to overcome quite a few things in order to get to where I am now. I celebrated my 30th birthday last year, and I didn't even think that I'd live this long. I started drinking when I was 14. My dad was an alcoholic. He was really abusive. My mom got sick and passed away when I was 19. I was in an abusive relationship for like 7 years and finally got out when I was 24 and decided to try and figure out sobriety and what life could be outside of all this other, you know, I would say, I'm trying to keep it PC, so I'm going to not say the word that, but y'all know what I mean. But through writing, I was able to figure out who I was and discover who I wanted to be and kind of become myself in a way. And now I help other people to do that. And I celebrated 6 years of sobriety on the 1st of January of this year, which was really exciting. And yeah, now I own a couple businesses here and know all of these beautiful, amazing people now. And yeah, life is just amazing and surprising and beautiful, and I'm really excited to be here. Thank you.
Thank you so much. That's gorgeous. Okay, Lauren is a brand photographer. So as well as taking snaps of people from all walks of life and helping them to find their true selves through pictures and media, she's also experienced a lot of criticism in the workplace as a young woman, being energized and energetic and enthusiastic, and coped with horrible bullying and all kinds of stuff. Can you tell us a bit about yourself, Lauren?
My name's Lauren McWilliams. I'm now a brand photographer, but my original, I suppose, ambition was to be a probation officer. So I came to Newcastle in 2013 to study criminology, and that was like what I was focused on. I really love people and finding out all the fascinating things that goes on in people's minds. My ambition was to be a probation officer. It's very competitive to get into that industry. And so I dived straight in, got as much experience as I could. I worked in prison. I've worked in the probation service, volunteering and paid. And then my final job was working in a hostel, so supporting people in Newcastle with homelessness. I absolutely loved my job, but I also found it extremely difficult because of the women that I was working with. I know that it tends to be with like International Women's Day and other things that we're doing. The focus is sometimes about men versus women. But I found that actually the hardest part was getting women to support what I was doing, and vice versa. It tended to be like they were in competition with each other rather than like lifting each other up and empowering each other. So that's been my focus ever since, is meeting, I suppose, being a freelancer now, I meet people who are like-minded, and I try to do anything possible with my clients or people that I'm meeting, networking by, in the events that I'm doing, by listening to their stories and getting them to really take ownership about who they are and being authentic. And maybe it is an overused word, but I think that it's given people that confidence to stand up and say who they are, and they're amazing people.
Perfect, thank you. And Majira is a coach, public speaker, works with young people from all different backgrounds and really helps to empower their voices. Can you share a little bit about yourself, Majira?
Thanks for the intro, Ashleigh. It's so nice to be here. My name's Majira. It's Majira Thomas, but I just want to say Majira because I see myself as somebody who sprinkles a glittering of positivity to those I meet. And why I say that is because we all have roles to play, but what I've discovered is being authentic for me is, who are you? Who are we underneath this all, as if like the baby that we were born, the unconditional love that we have, that's who we always are. But we forget those things as we're experiencing, family, what we see, what we're dealt with. So we start conditioning ourselves. And for me, I lived my life, a lot of it, through other people's expectations. So I didn't really know who I was for a long time because I was searching. And if I didn't please everyone else, then I wasn't happy. But actually, deep down, you become more unhappy because you're trying to be somebody that you're not. So when I was born in India, and within 6 months I left, well, I literally didn't leave. My mum flew me out to Jamaica and the West Indies, where I spent the first 5 years of my life. That's where I attribute, I think, that I like reggae and a bit of sun and sea and everything else that goes with it, because my dad said I didn't sleep until they put me in the car with some tunes on. So yeah. Then there was a few troubles in the 80s in Kingston, so we moved to Ashington in the UK. It was a very, very December a snowy December. And then I also had family back in Kerala. That's where I'm from, South India. So we would go back. But what happened over the years is it's not about them personally, the community. It's not targeted at you personally. But when I was growing up, I was often told, I'm not slim enough, I'm not tall enough, I'm not fair enough on my skin. But it's a kind of a cultural thing. It's not, it's tongue in cheek when they say it. But what happens is that it soaks in. And to this day, which really annoys me, is, part of being real is appreciating every bit about you, not just the inside, but also the outside. And we still have this cream that's called white and lovely, or fair and lovely, which I know there was a big push to get rid of even the name. But it's that image that being fair and white is amazing, and you've got to be pretty. Just you're prettier. But height-wise, I couldn't do anything. I am who I am, and that was it. So I battled with that and being slim and this image that's conjured up. And then, my education, and then teaching as well. When my teacher said to me, because I loved drama, I loved using my voice. Back then I knew in school, but here, one of them, I was told, well, drama and theatre isn't really for someone like me. It's not because of my colour. And I look back, and yes, it was a disempowering moment, but I just pushed it back because I thought she knows best, right? She's in the industry, she knows. And I look and think maybe she was protecting me. There's Floella Benjamin in my time when I knew she was in play school. But I used to want to be a Blue Peter presenter. I know there's young people here, I'm showing my age, but so anyway, fast forward, there's lots of things, and culturally, both Eastern and Western, they impose certain things on us. I wasn't a doctor, an engineer, or a lawyer. Everyone around me, my counterparts, my peers, were all doing that in my community. So when I went off, I didn't, I like languages. What was I going to do with a language? I thought it's not good enough. So anyway, I did science. Didn't do very well. But anyway, that's another story. And now what I do, what I personally think success is being true to yourself and being brave enough to do it. But also knowing where your boundaries are, knowing that you don't have to do anything you don't want to. Because you stop, you recharge, and you focus on knowing in yourself what you've got to do for yourself. And I work with young people particularly. I work with grown-ups as well, but particularly with young people, because I want them to gain their voice and to navigate through life, not happy, but to know that you can get over obstacles, and that it's okay, and how do we face those? Because then you get to navigate your life, and these are tools I didn't have when I was growing up. So anyway, that's it for now, but I'm loving being here, so thank you.
I think that's really powerful. Thank you for sharing. And I think there are young women in the room, which is really great actually to have so many young women in the room. So thank you for being here, and thank you for sharing that. So I would like to introduce you to Fujiro, who we met during TEDx as well, and actually co-hosted the TEDx Imagine a World conference. And for me, I really enjoy chatting to Fujiro because she, in my head, my ideas or stereotypes or things I would have thought, I just love the way you are so yourself. So, for instance, from Nigeria, but love science, fashion, God, so many different things that might seem a little bit complex or even counterintuitive sometimes. Yeah. So can you tell us a little bit about yourself?
Hi, my name is Fujiro. I'm 20 and I'm my final year at Newcastle Uni. I'm studying physiological sciences. So initially, I'm Nigerian. And if you would know, the background is kind of similar to what you shared in terms of like how the world works and everything. And so success to us would be a career that you can make use of, and, you know, that could pay you monthly. It's something that your parents would want to tell you, their aunties are like, yeah, my child is doing this, and they're like, yeah, you know. And initially I didn't have any problem with that because I always aspired to do something with science. Actually, I wanted to be a doctor. I wanted to be a cardiologist, to be precise. And so my parents were fine with that. That's good aspiration, you know. And they're like, yeah, go for it, pursue it, you know, do that. But I never got to really like experimental art, because the art that I knew was drawing, and I can't draw to save a life. Like, that is really bad. And so I just thought, you know, that wasn't my area of expertise, so I never really went down that route. And so but I'm also Christian. I was born and raised Christian in a Christian family, and so with things like religion, when you're raised in a particular way, you can't follow what your parents tell you forever. That doesn't work for you till the end of time. You have to kind of find out what the religion means to you, what the faith means to you on your own. And thankfully, I got to do that on my own. And I've been living away from my parents since I was 12. So I went to boarding school, and then I moved to a different continent at like 16. And so, like, I'm very good at being by myself, and like, so, which is like, you know, and so moving here, I was by myself, you know, everything, even though I had like guardianship and whatever, because, you know, boarding school and all of that. But essentially, I had to find out my walk of life for me. And so it was the first time I truly got to experiment what I wanted instead of what I thought I wanted. So like I said, I wanted to do medicine because I thought, you know, that's the best thing. I was good at sciences. I was a good student, like, you know. And so I found my way here. I didn't get into medical school after I applied because I did sixth form here. And then I got into physiological science. This is like my backup plan in Newcastle. And I'm so happy I did this because I can't imagine myself being a doctor now, which is so funny. And I really struggled with that, the change from sciences, which I still very much love and still very much believe in, which sometimes can be contrasting with the fact that I'm Christian as well. But I like to say that the two don't necessarily contrast, but they complement each other very well, faith and science, and people don't tend to realize that. It doesn't dispute the other, but actually proves that, to me anyways, that they both exist simultaneously. And so I like having conversations like that with people because I think it's very interesting. I like hearing people's perspectives and how I like knowing how people's mind work, you know, and just trying to get to know more people, because coming from a country where everyone kind of thinks the way everyone thinks is one way, and my country is split, so half is Muslim, half is Christian, so you either or, there's no like in between, you know. And so moving here really opened my mind to that perspective, and now I fell in love with fashion on the way, and that's something I'm really, really like passionate about now. And imagine telling that to like African parents, man. that was not the plan. You were meant to come here, do medicine, come back. What are you on? What are you on? No, like, that's not it. Can you even make is that a stable job? What is what you're doing, you know? And trying to explain to them what styling is and creative direction is. But it's something that I realized that I've always been good at, but I never tapped into it because I didn't have the resources to back at home, which is something people struggle with a lot. But yeah, I'm really kind of proud of how much I've achieved so far in such little time, and on my own as well. And just navigating that walk of life, balancing that with science and then with my faith and everything. But it's created lots of interesting conversations. So yeah.
Excellent. Thank you. Wow. I can't imagine the conversation you had with your parents. That sounds like fun. So I also think that science and fashion are not exclusive, because we have a genetics student in the room who was a former model. I won't name any names, but I would like to ask a question to Kay. So Kay, you are a rapper, hip hop artist. You're writing, you're producing content. You really have found your own voice. You've won awards. You've done all kinds of things. But was it ever in the beginning finding your feet? Do you see any issues in terms of gender equality or expectations, or you need to dress a certain way or be a certain thing or conform to anything? How have you found being in the media and in music?
So it was interesting for me. I'm the youngest of 7, and I'm the only female. So I've got six older brothers. So kind of being the only girl was something for me that was like kind of like duck to water. Do you know what I mean? It was fine. But once I started doing music, and specifically, I had a show that was like my first ever show. I'd never performed live before. I was 11 years old. I was so excited. This guy named Fred came to me and said, would you like to do a rap concert? And I was like, absolutely, because that was like the dream. And I like rehearsed, and like got like super excited to go and play the gig. Turned up at the gig. I was like, okay, let's go. Everybody was in the room. There was like 20 performers, and it happened to be like an audition for Universal Music, the record label. So obviously they were looking for an 11-year-old girl from Newcastle. So I was in the right place, like, you know. But yes, I turned up, and like right before I was meant to go in the room and perform, the same guy who like asked me to do the gig came up and went, oh, like, don't worry, don't bother, they're not looking for girls. So I was like, Like, I was kind of just like, it didn't even cotton to me that I was the only female in the room. But ever since then, it was like, as I sort of grew and started performing more and going out and doing more gigs, I realized that was like a repeated pattern, especially with rap. I was often sort of singled out in that way to where, oh yeah, that's the female rapper, and we're gonna, you know. And for me, I kind of used it to inspire me. I was like, okay, if I'm the female rapper, I'm also going to be the best rapper in the room, you know, and that's how they're going to think of me next time, rather than think, oh yeah, you know. So, but it definitely became something that was prevalent. But I think even beyond performing, even just going into environments like studio environments or things like that, where all of the producers are male, everyone who works at the studio is male, all of the camera directors are male, everybody in the room. And not only that, the idea of a woman working those roles is like, oh my God, like, you can press this button and be a woman? Like, you know what I'm saying? It was unreal. But I mean, over the past few years, there's been so much progress, and it seemingly so fast. I work with a company called Northern Roots, and we do lots of different projects. And before that, I worked with lots of different companies. I can't remember company names, but yeah, that basically were about helping young women not just stand up and be performers and be singers and give that resource, but also to be behind the camera, to be behind the desk, to be in these roles where there really is, like, the percentage is so small. And there's progress being made, and it's such a cool thing. I think there are, I know for sure, I'm willing to be competed with on the fact that there are just as many talented female studio engineers and just as many talented female artists as there are male. But the thing is, being the only girl walking in the room, it's difficult to stay in the room. That's because it can be completely uncomfortable, and, you know, and I battled with that. But the thing is, even from a young age, I knew that if my purpose wasn't known then, it would be known in the future, that I had to stay in those rooms so that one day I could turn around and go, oh, like, there's somebody else, now there's two of us, and now there's three. But if you're not the first, then it can never happen. Mm-hmm. So, so that, I think that answered the question.
Absolutely, it did.
So,
thank you. And
yeah.
I think as well, there's been so much progress in lots of different ways, but also towards gender fluidity, pronouns, and things like that. So I think that's a really good point. I really enjoyed hearing some of your reflections there about going into some of those spaces. And you're so right. As a woman in media, having my own studio, I know that there aren't always many studios where you have a female lead, or you have female photographers, videographers in that studio, in those spaces. So thanks for sharing that, Kay. I'd love to hear from CeCe now. So CeCe, you do a lot of work with recovering addicts, but also people who've been through trauma. You're also very body positive. You are confident in yourself, and you really, help other people in so many ways that you don't even see. But there's always people saying, wow, thank you so much for just letting me have this space and holding me. And I want to know, you've been through so much, but for you, what is the thing that, you know, really helped you when you were in your darkest times, and how does that help you help your the people you work with now?
What a question. I mean, if I had to pick the one thing that's really helped me, I mean, it would come down to writing, because of all the different ways that that's appeared in my life over time. So even like when my mom was sick and there wasn't anybody to talk to because there was so much going on with her and all, you know, whatever, I always had my journal. I always had a pen. I always had some place where I could go and I could write down the things that were going on. I didn't have to worry about anybody like judging me. I was one of those emo kids who made really challenging collages and really, you know, wrote really dark poetry. I still very much am that emo kid, to be perfectly honest. But it gave me the space to be completely honest about what was going on with me. And that sort of has evolved over time, and now helping other people to journal and whatever. Because here's the thing is, because I have been through so many different things, I'm really grateful for that, because it allows me to reach so many different people who have been through so many different things. I can stand up and tell my story, and like somebody who's been through addiction will relate to me. Somebody who's lost a parent or had a family member be sick can relate to me. Somebody who's been through domestic abuse. So I've like collected all these life experiences. So now I can just help all of the people, right? That's how I see it. And I can teach them, like, this is how you can write about things. And because people think of journaling as maybe just reliving traumas, you have to say the thing that happened to you over and over, and that's actually not what it's about. You know what happened to you. How do you feel about that? You know, what the memories and things that we think over and over is what creates our belief systems. So, but we don't really know that's happening until we ask the questions. And so writing is the gift of perspective. You know, it allows us to see like, okay, well, this is what happened, and this is probably why that happened. And that's actually probably not true. And I feel guilty about this, but I didn't actually do anything wrong, and I can put it down. It's so like powerful and transformative. But that's what I want to say about authenticity is I think people think of it as like, oh, well, that's not who I am. And they can think of it as like very rigid. But I think real authenticity is acknowledging that you are able to change, that you can find out new things about yourself and do different things, and you're like learning and growing and having new experiences every single day. You're not the same person from one day to the next. You know, like my authentic self now is like in recovery and owning businesses and living in another country and doing all these things, right? But my authentic self back in the day was like in active addiction and just like absolutely miserable. You know, things change. And so I think that's what authenticity is about, is like embracing those changes.
I love that. And I love that we're on a continuous journey. And I'm currently doing some neurolinguistic programming qualifications, and I'm learning that people or ourselves, we only do the best with what we can, with the knowledge and the resources and tools we have right now. And I think that really helps to understand how, you know, we're all progressing as time goes on. Thank you for sharing that. Thank you. So Lauren, I know that you work with so many different women, with men, all people from all walks of life. You've done amazing work for me with dance charities, and you just photograph all kinds of things. But one of the things that people often find is they don't know how to put themselves out there. They feel worried about the brand, the image, how to feel in touch with themselves, how to feel relaxed in front of the camera. Is there anything you'd like to share about what you've been through, or your own journey with brand photography and authenticity, and the types of issues that your clients might face?
I guess for me it's relating. As you probably all can tell, I'm nervous, and that's been something that I've been working on from the beginning. When I first started my business, I would not have been sat up here. Like, I wouldn't have been able to string a sentence together, never mind going embarrassed and going red. So it's something that I've been working on. But I think because I'm documenting that and showing that and showing up, whether that's challenging myself to go live on Facebook or wherever, because I'm putting myself out of my comfort zone, I challenge the people around me to do the same. So like a lot of my clients hate having their photo taken, as I'm sure a lot of people in the room will agree. And so something that I did was put myself in those shoes of like, how is my client going to feel? So I went and had a photo shoot, and maybe it's not going to be the same because we all go through different things, but at first I was really nervous, I was scared, I was completely out of my comfort zone. Being in front of the camera instead of behind it is a totally different feeling. And so for me, it's about relating to the client and helping them to know that they're not alone. So like, it's all about building those relationships up. I don't just turn up to a photo shoot and stick a big lens in your face and say, right, come on, we're going to get some photos, because it's about people aren't going to feel comfortable with that. So I like to get to know them, hear their story, ask them questions in their own time, and build that up so that when the time comes together, they feel like they're just hanging out with a friend rather than a professional service. Well, it's still a professional service, but not as daunting, for example. And then going beyond that to how do they actually use those images. And I think that's the most important thing, is people don't know how to share their story because they think we have to act, especially as women, in a certain way. We have to look a certain way, we must dress a certain way. And I'm always trying to get people to say, I think we were talking about it earlier, saying, you know, like, doesn't matter what industry you're in, wear what you would ordinarily wear to go meet a client. Be the same person in person as you are online. And that's what I want to get across is, you know, you are an amazing person and your clients are going to choose you for that. But you need to look consistent across all of those, and it's having the confidence to do that.
I like that. Thank you so much for sharing. Majira, you were sharing before a little bit about your background, and one of my questions for you is facing judgments or experiences where people are wanting you to behave in a certain way or live a certain way, or just having labels put on you. One of the things I know about you is you call yourself the empowerer, and I'd love to know where that came from, but also how young people, particularly young women, you know, they go in on Instagram, they're 14 years old, they won't put a picture without a filter or, you know, without makeup. And that's really scary. You know, how can we live or how can we look after our teens and girls and, you know, without those labels, and how can we empower them?
So I base a lot of what I do on, you know, what Lauren's just mentioned, really, is putting myself similar situation to them. Particularly when I was growing up, it was who am I, as in, do I follow the Eastern or Western philosophies? And on top of that, I'm going through my teenage years as well. So it's like, you know, because when I was brought up here, my parents, it's like a time warp, I describe it as, because they're bringing me up as if they were back in India. The Indian culture's moving forward. England's, it's progressing in its own way. And it's like, oh my gosh, who am I? Where am I belonging? So it's very confusing for a start. So with girls, particularly, who are very shy, you see, fundamentally, what I've realized through my own self is the relationship we have with ourselves. That's what's got to be first and foremost tapped into. And a teenager, I know I've got a few sat here. Believe it or not, you know, I'm not very scientific, I can ask you, but the frontal cortex is still in development, and that's where it is. I think it's only at 22, 25 that it's fully developed. So that kind of thing you're dealing with as well. So what I also hear is that they see things, but it's not real. But the persona of social media, the heavy negative side of it, is they build their own perceptions. And you see, I've heard this professionally spoken about a lot, that young people don't listen. Well, yes, they do. From a child, from babies, they're listening. The thing we need to teach them is how to interpret stuff. I really believe that. It's not the listening they need. It's how we, you know, deciphering the information that's being given. And body image is just, you know, one of the students I worked with, you know, she said somebody called her fat when she was in year 7. Ever since then, she's now in year 9, 10. She's in year 10. She still hasn't danced because she's so afraid of that, I'm going to be called fat again. And That's why I do the work I do. Because I know the damage it does is you don't learn to like or love anyone else less, but you certainly begin to like yourself less. And to get over that, we need to starting with I call my program Engage Self-Confidence, but it's engaging with self first and then others around you.
Absolutely, thank you. I love that. I love the story you've said there. I'm still curious about the empower bit. Do you want to say anything about that?
Why I do the empowering is because I was disempowered a lot over my life, and I know the difference it makes when you empower. So even when I was growing up, I would compliment, a lot of my friends would say, oh, you're so nice, so why are you saying all this? And I'm like, because I want to, because I know what it feels like when you're dismissed, you're not heard. Also, I'm a girl and my community is very male dominant, you know, they have the last say. You know, when a man walks in the room, particularly if the older man, we stand up. You know, that was the environment I was brought up in. And you don't eat or you don't sit down until they've started or they've finished. So, and when you're spoken, you know, you can speak, but it's better not to be over smart if you talk or share an opinion. You know, it's that kind of attitude. So being disempowered, you learn very quickly to play small, to stay small, even among, you know, not even older guys, just your own age group. So to me, I see boys as well. I know we're talking predominantly about girls, but I know that teenage boys also want to be heard sometimes. They do, and they want to be asked, and I'll make a space for them and ask them, how are they? And they say, some of our friends don't even ask how we are. And they just want to be seen and heard, and that's part of empowering others, is saying, I value you, I hear you, I see you, I notice you. And my Majira the Empowerer, that's a funny story, but came about because I was playing with my name, Majira, and the A, I wanted Empowerer as in the A. Glad you remembered that, because I've let it go a bit, because I got some guys from around the world thinking I was Majira the Empowerer in another way, and I was like, no, that would be a whole nother kettle of fish, and it would be very exclusive. So I just thought, no. That's not going to go. But I love, and actually my tagline on my life coaching by Majira is empowering you to fulfill your goals, because the only way you can do it is you doing it for yourself. I know that because I saved myself. You know, 2018 was my journey, and I say to my clients, it doesn't matter how old they are, you can do it, but I will guide you and enable you. I won't do it for you. You have to put in the work. But I'm there for you.
I love that, and I love that idea of giving responsibility for taking actions. One of the things that I wanted to just comment on what you've said was about young women. Actually, what we don't always realize is how many young women and girls drop out of sport. So I read a really interesting poster about this the other day, and I've had one of my podcast guests in the past talk about that. And I think that's another thing. You know, you mentioned that there was a dancer who stopped dancing because she was worried she was fat, but there are similar things around sport. You know, how do you do sport once you get into your teens? Is it not cool anymore? And actually having that authenticity and that courage to just be yourself and enjoy sport, whether it's soccer or whatever it is. And sorry, I say soccer, I'm from South Africa, so. And then Fujiro, I have a question for you about standing up and actually speaking your truth. So one of the things that I really like about you is you have the courage to challenge people when they say stuff that isn't cool. Maybe if it's something that's really sexist, racist. I've seen you in action before. And I think it takes a lot of courage. And I would really love to hear how you find your courage to do that, but also what makes you want to step up for people.
Okay, sorry, my voice. I have an older sister. She's about 15 years older than me. So when I was growing up, the one thing she used to tell me all the time, especially when I started off to boarding school, don't let anyone oppress you, don't let anyone talk over you, don't let anyone do this and that. And my cultural background is very similar to yours as well. Like, as a girl, you're meant to be, you know, calm, cool, collected, very, you know, shy, very reserved. And also on the cultural perspective as well, the male is always the dominant one. And funny enough, my father, well, he went to law school, so he's a lawyer by profession, but he doesn't do that anymore. So a lot of our talks is always, well, why do you think that? Go research and come back to me. What's the facts behind that? What this is not about. He's not a very emotional person, so he's more of like, okay, but what's a realistic point of view? So from a young age, he's always made me want to go back and like, if I want to come up with an argument, I have to have argument A, B, C, D, E, F. This is why, this is why, this is why, and Google it. It's here and here and here. So that's kind of how I was raised, and then coupled with my sister always telling me, don't let anyone do this and do this, because she's already experienced life to some degree. When I was born, she's done the whole boarding school, done the whole, you know, teenage years and all of that. So when I was younger, that used to ring in my head, don't let anyone oppress you. And so when I first went to boarding school, actually, the people who were older than me were like, you have an attitude problem. But it wasn't actually an attitude problem, it was just that I did not let them talk down to me. And I knew when to say, no, that's not what I said, no, that's not right. And they weren't comfortable with that. And so at first I was like, I pulled back a bit because I was like, oh, in order to like fit and not cause any trouble, we might have to, you know, just tone myself down a bit. But I think naturally I'm also born into, I guess, a leadership type role. I've always stood up for people, and maybe it's because I have a younger brother as well, maybe that's why, but I've always had to look after him as well. And so naturally I always pursue like a leadership role, whether it be like student representative, head girl, whatever. And so that makes you have to speak up for people and go out and see what people are thinking and present that to a board or whatever. So I guess in practice that's always been that. So, but I think most of it is to my sister, and just knowing that, and also my dad as well. Like, if you know the knowledge and you know the facts, and you should be very confident in speaking the way you are, but doesn't necessarily mean you need to shut other people up to get your points across. So I think that's where the balance sometimes gets, you know, eerie, because people want to say what they want, but they're not very willing to listen as well. And that's something that I had to work on. But yeah, so through all of that, I just need to, especially for my younger brother, someone needs to speak up for him because he was very shy. So I had to do a lot of work, especially with my parents as well. So I was well, no, don't do that to him. No, don't say that. Because, you know, I was more of like, no, this is what he means, not this way. And so I was more of like his spokesperson. So I had a lot of practice with that growing up. So, and now moving from a country where everyone looks like me, same skin color, and moving to a different country like that. Thankfully with media, I was already exposed to, you know, the different walks of life that people go through, but like coming here was very different. And so I realized that, okay, I have to actually step it up a bit. And so moving to a different country, different people, I had to realize that actually, no, my culture doesn't say that. Whatever you sing about my country in the media is not actually what actually happens. And it's okay if you want to learn, and I will explain it to you. But when you come to me with these ignorances in a very profound way, then what are you trying to trying to converse with me, or are you trying to just shout, like yell at me what your facts and your, you know, opinions are? And then I'm trying to say, because I'm a very strong person as well, so I'm very like headed. So I'm like, if this is not what happens, this is what happens instead. Because I feel like if you don't educate people, they will never know. And sadly, the burden is kind of on my part. But at the same time, I feel like nowadays people are getting more open and trying to learn more about other cultures and stuff like that. But it always had to come from me at first, because I feel like if I don't represent what my country truly is, I might be the only Nigerian they ever meet later on in life. So, and they have this bias in their head. It has to be corrected in some way, because then they pass that bias down to their friends, and you have many discussions amongst people, and one of the way it will come out, and then they pass that bias to other people, and then your children, and then their children. It just continues, you know, endless cycle. And so you have to pick one person, and from there, you know, the actual truth gets shared. And so that was one thing, having to say, actually, no, that's not what I do here. No, actually, we don't have elephants. No. Because if people don't know, Nigeria we do not have animals, okay? We only have monkeys, and that's about it. So the whole narrative of lions, like, I've actually never seen one like in my life except in the zoo. So don't ask me that. And just like going through stuff like that, like, yeah, we're very traditional, but my generation is actually very open-minded and we're well spoken as well. Actually, your first language is English. You're taught English in school. That's what we speak. That is why I can't speak English. It's nothing extra or, extraordinary about me. This is how I communicate back at home with English. And so people, just the tiny things here and there, which obviously I don't fault them for, because the media can be very mind-warping sometimes. But yeah, I feel like if I don't step forward to do these things, then who will, and that's just how it is.
I think it's a really valid point that you made there about the emotional labor of having to explain to someone and correct them on assumptions and stereotypes they make about race, about ethnicity, faith, any of these things. It's not your responsibility to have to teach someone. At the same time, you don't want to have to stand for things that aren't true. So it's a huge thing when we look at equality, diversity and inclusion, that expectation that if you're from a particular group, it's your responsibility to school people. It isn't. We can all learn that as well and make more time to ask and to read, and I think that's really important. Thank you so much for sharing.
You've been listening to Nurture Your Zest. You can find us online on Facebook, Twitter, Instagram and LinkedIn at Nurture Your Zest. If you've liked today, please subscribe. You can also leave us a review if you're feeling extra kind. Today's podcast has been made available through the kind sponsorship of Nat Branding Company. We look forward to catching up with you again soon as you learn to nurture your zest.